Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I am your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel and my own Spotify. Check it out, guys. Type Curtain Jerkin on Spotify and subscribe. Listen to it. If you've already listened to it, just play it on mute. Help me out. I get a little bit of money through these ads that we're putting on. If you don't like the ads that are going on, I gotta be honest, I have no control of that. Spreaker puts them on. I don't even know who I'm advertising on this show. So much like these ads have nothing to do with me, I have nothing to do with these ads, is what I'm saying. I do have something to do with Monday Night Raw because I watch it. I like it. I've been watching it my whole life. And I have opinions on it. I'm going to share those opinions because this is a pro wrestling podcast. Austin Theory versus John Cena at WrestleMania for the U.S. title. I mean, look at the history here. John Cena won the U.S. Championship by slamming the Big Show at WrestleMania, I think, 20. So we're going on 19 years of Cena here. And then, of course, he beat Rusev for the title at WrestleMania 31 and then went on to do the the U.S. title challenge, where we got introduced to guys like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, I think Pac, known as Neville then. I know Stardust wrestled in the U.S. title challenge, so he kind of put over that next generation through the U.S. title challenge and then kind of put himself over as that next generation by winning the U.S. title. And here he is again facing, who I think many people has already stamped and dubbed the next generation of the WWE in Austin Theory. The story is right there. I would say it writes itself, but there's actually a team of writers that put it together and wrote it for us all. And they did a really good job here. John Cena can still move tickets. I think they said in Boston, it was like 5,000 or 6,000 people, or 8,000 people bought tickets. Anyway, he got like a jump of like 4,000 to 5,000 people bought tickets to see John Cena on Monday Night Raw that did not buy tickets prior, man. The Cena effect. Of course, everyone knows he's from West Newbury, Massachusetts, very close to Boston. So they paid to see their hometown boy maybe come out there, talk some shit, whoop a little ass. I think he just talked some shit. It feels good to see John Cena, Of course, everyone booed him back in the day. We gave him a lot of shit back in the day. I'm not going to lie. But then, you start to realize that part of why you love wrestling was because you got to boo John Cena. And then since Cena gave you that outlet all those years, you kind of start to love John Cena. And then, next thing you know, you're calling your mom. You're asking how her day went. It gives you that good feeling inside to see John Cena on Monday Night Raw. Cody versus Roman on SmackDown. They showed like a video package. I didn't get to watch SmackDown, so they showed this video package I thought was really good. These back and forth promo. Cody, of course, sent the bloodline to the back. Roman standing there, laid both titles out in front of him, kind of like a line in the sand where these two titles. He said, "So what do you want to talk about?" I thought that was a pretty funny line because, of course, Cody said that in his final days in AEW. And then Ricky Starks on Saturday said the same line. I think this is something like within the industry that is kind of maybe joked about, mocked about. You kind of saw Cody kind of breaking down as much as, probably he would ever really show us, breaking down, being frustrated with AEW at the time. And I think, Roman saying that line was very clever, with a slew of clever points and sentences from Roman Reigns, for lack of a better word. He said, you ever competed for one of those? You ever competed for that one? Talking about competing for titles all around the world. Did you ever compete for that one? The most important, the WWE World Heavyweight title in conjunction with the Universal title. And then he said, he went on telling a story about how Dusty Rhodes trained him from the beginning, even doing a Dusty impression. So you know what he said about you? Nothing. That's got to burn him. And, he said, you're the son. Cody said, you're the son that he always wanted. but that changes everything. Pretty much everyone gave Cody a lot of shit for talking about his dad so much, but that sets up the history of this angle. And to me, the history is everything in here. You have someone from the Dusty Dynasty. Of course, Dusty Rhodes, and you had Dustin Rhodes in the 90s, and you had Cody Rhodes in the 2000s and 2010s, leading up to what we see today in the star of Cody Rhodes. And then during that whole time, you had, the Samoan Dynasty. The Samoan SWAT team going up until where you had like Yokozuna and Umaga. I mean, even the fucking Rock is all a part of this family lineage that we know as the bloodline today. So in order to fully tell this story, you got to go back to the 80s. You got to go back to Jim Crockett Promotions as well as WWF to tell the story that we're watching play in front of us in 2023. It goes back like 40 years. So when people are giving Cody shit for talking about his dad, that's great. To solidify the history is to solidify this match, and this is on this biggest match on the biggest show of the year, WrestleMania, and I'm fucking hooked. I don't know if you can tell in my voice, but it's WrestleMania fucking season. And what's cool about WrestleMania season is Raw and SmackDown get good. I got to be honest, I watch all the time. I watch Raw, I watch SmackDown. I try not to, but justifying it weekly or even monthly is hard sometimes because it gets pretty bad. But WrestleMania season, they get their fucking ducks in a row and they know what they're doing, especially when Jay shows up, Sammy beats Jimmy, Jay hugs Sammy, and then kicks the shit out of him and basically tells him, how foolish he is for even assuming that he would choose Sami Zayn over his family. I mean, we kind of knew it all along, but the crowd wanted it so bad. The crowd wanted just one more person to be behind Sami Zayn to help him in this war against Roman, that they kind of looked past the idea of the Usos breaking up. I mean, come on, the Usos breaking up, that's ridiculous. That's like breaking up the Dudleys. When they broke up the Dudleys, only like a million times worse. Of course, the Bloodline beatdown happened, and then all of a sudden, Cody's music hits. He keeps the Bloodline at bay. It's WrestleMania fucking season, baby. Sign me up. I'm ready. I have it, man. I have the that special spark that wrestling fans get when it's WrestleMania time. Logan Paul versus Rollins, I think, is going to be an iconic match because it's going to blend two WrestleMania matches, two kind of stereotypes for WrestleMania matches: the celebrity match and the best match on the show, the Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat match within the celebrity match. It was the first time ever, first time in history this is going to happen. I think it's going to happen here. Edge and Finn might do it. I know that's probably a trajectory of a match. Sign me up for either one of those. I'm stoked for Omos versus Brock Lesnar. Would I be stoked if that was on a Wrestle Kingdom card? Would I be stoked if that was on a B show pay-per-view? Probably not, but since it's WrestleMania, the lights are on bright. People are going to be tuning into WrestleMania that don't watch any other wrestling show. And what are they going to be watching? They want to see, as Big E calls it, big meat, slapping meat, Brock Lesnar, the iconic big man, the guy who has beaten Roman Reigns, the guy who has beaten Undertaker. I couldn't think of it. The guy, I think he beat Goldberg at WrestleMania. Just going, running down the list of names that he's beaten at WrestleMania. He beat Jon Moxley, threw him on a pile of chairs, left him laying. 20 years of destruction, whether it be NCAA wrestling, whether it be WWF, whether it be WWE, whether it be almost making it to the NFL, whether it be UFC. Brock Lesnar's done it all, and he's going up against a guy who looks like he could do it all in Vince McMahon's perspective, in the giant traditional wrestling fans' perspective. Why isn't this guy getting pushed more than he is? Here he is in the biggest match of his life against Brock Lesnar. I'm going to say it, guys. I hope Almost wins because I like wrestling. I want to see wrestling move on beyond Brock Lesnar. I love the Beast, but I want to see a day where Brock Lesnar can retire and the wrestling industry isn't looking for that next giant, isn't looking for that next guy. Could it be Omos? Does Omos have something that we haven't seen out of Omos before? I hope so. I hope so, because he's going to step on that stage at WrestleMania, and I don't want to see a bad show. Honestly, that's why I hope he has it. thinking more about the card, I mean, you got the 6-woman tag, bringing back Trish and Lita. I love this because you have elements of the first ever main event women's match on Raw history, Lita versus Trish, blending it with the 4 horsewomen of NXT who have pretty much changed the industry, showed the world that there is mainstream appeal in women's wrestling. And then you have the element of the next generation after that in Io Sky and Dakota Kai. So it's like 3 to 4 generations all tied into one 6-woman tag. The only thing that's missing is to get those titles away. It's a 6-man tag. It's a tag title match. I heard John Pollock on Post Wrestling kind of mention this. Is like, get those titles off of them, because you could do more with those titles in a tag title setting. You got 2 shows. You could do a 6-man or 6-woman tag one night, and then a tag title the next night. He mentioned something about Ronda Rousey and everything. I wouldn't really be too interested in that, but it would still be for the titles, and that could, validate it being on WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte, that match is going to be amazing. Speaking about the multiple generations, this is a WrestleMania rematch from the pandemic, the WrestleMania they did in front of nobody. The worst WrestleMania of all time, the best match on the worst WrestleMania of all time was Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. Now we're going to see it in front of fans. I'm excited. I can't think of any more WrestleMania matches, but WrestleMania definitely has a big fight feel, just like all Jon Jones fights do. But damn, this one was short. He came out, crowd was definitely behind him chanting USA, and I couldn't figure out why, but then I realized he's facing a dude who's French, so they were chanting USA. So Jon Jones fighting for all of America gets kicked right in the dick right away, and then kind of pissed that he get kicked in the dick like anyone would be, and then he just chokes the dude out, passes out. Jon Jones wins in 2 minutes. You may not like the guy, you may not like what he's about, you may not like what he's done in the past, but in the octagon, he is the GOAT. You got to give him credit if you want to, have other people validate your opinion. You kind of honestly have to give him credit for being one of the greatest of all time in mixed martial arts. Something that I consider one of the greatest of all time is New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's my favorite. It's my jam. I'm jumping in to the second round of the New Japan Cup. I'm watching AEW. I'm watching UFC. I'm watching WWE. So I'll jump into the New Japan Cup in the second round. But I'm still going to be talking about the results of the first round. Sonata beating Taichi. That's going to lead to Sonata versus Kenta in the second round. And these two motherfuckers need to redeem themselves, because the first time they kind of went at it, I don't even know if it's the first time they went at it, but last year in the television title tournament, their match was the Drizzling Shits. It was the worst match I can remember of 2022. So, these are two good wrestlers, but they need to step it up. This is the New Japan Cup. Prove yourself to me that you guys can actually have a good match together, because, I guess the joke's on me if you don't. I'm going to be watching either way, but I will talk shit about you on this podcast in English. So, there you go, motherfuckers. Naito beating LP to go up against Chase Owens. I think Naito's pretty much gonna be, just like LP, gonna run through Chase Owens, and I hope it's Kenta versus Naito. I feel like that would be a third round matchup for the ages there. On the other side of the bracket, David Finlay, he re-debuts as the new Bullet Club guy. Got the leather jacket, got the black and blonde hair, kind of like Omega. Of course, at first it was Fergal Devitt, a.k.a. Finn Balor. Then it was AJ Styles. Then it was Kenny Omega. Then it was Switchblade Jay White. All leaders of the Bullet Club. It was never evil. And now we have David Finlay in the leader of the Bullet Club leather jacket gimmick, beating Ishii, looking strong. Gato standing behind him. David Finlay is someone who was a young lion the same time as Switchblade was a young lion. Came up, kind of through the ranks together a little bit, but it looks like he kind of plateaued over the years. Of course, he had a tag title run with Juice Robinson. but it really never felt like David Finlay kind of ever really resonated the way that Switchblade Jay White did. That's why he attacked him in San Jose. And, Juice is kind of gone. Maybe Juice could have been that guy. I think Juice would have been that guy, but Juice didn't want it. Juice wanted to be in America. I don't think he wanted to be in New Japan anymore. I think he wanted to be with his girlfriend Toni Storm in America, and I can't blame him. I'd follow her anywhere. But David Finlay's got the spot now. Let's see what he can do with it. He had a great G1 in 2022. Let's see what he can do with the rocket attached to him in 2023. Shota Umino versus Zack Sabre Jr. in the second round. That's going to be pretty good. There was also an anniversary card since we last spoke where Okada and Tanahashi teamed up, the two GOATs, the two current GOATs in New Japan Pro Wrestling, only to take the L to the current tag champions Yoshihashi and Goto. I don't know if I would have done that. That seems to be the wrong move in my opinion. I would have put the title on the GOATs, especially during this New Japan Cup tournament. I know Okada's got the world title, but you could have had a little tag title run and just put it back on Yoshihashi and Goto just to kind of change up, shake the news up a little bit, get eyes back on New Japan right in time for the New Japan Cup tournament to wrap up. And then you got the New Japan Cup champion going up against Okada, who, even though it was a tag title match, might be in a little bit of a losing streak, which is hard to give a champion. I don't know. Maybe I'm just tying myself in knots trying to book this company when it's Gato's job, and Gato is behind David Finlay, as we know. Man, it's good stuff here. WWE is firing on all cylinders. UFC is giving us a star, and I think UFC kind of needs to build stars right now. It looks like, Ronda Rousey, of course, is already gone years ago, and McGregor is gone, so I think they kind of need Jon Jones to be back in the UFC, and he is back. And New Japan looks like they're firing on all cylinders as well. Speaking of firing on all cylinders, we have AEW. They had an amazing weekend, one of the best shows I've seen in a long, long time. But before that, we got to talk about the ladder match, the Face of the Revolution ladder match on Dynamite last week. I usually talk about Dynamite, I usually talk about Rampage. I'm just jumping right into Revolution. But before I do that, I'm going to, I guess, side note into this ladder match because there's a lot to talk about here. Eddie Kingston and Ortiz brawling to the back. That feud doesn't really seem like it's going to end, but it kind of maybe needs to. I thought it was going to happen at Revolution. It might have happened at Revolution, but I didn't catch it. And then you also got Eddie Kingston in ROH fighting for like the world title over there. So unless he's going to win the world title, then Ortiz and him are going to have a world title feud in Ring of Honor. I don't know what's going on. Commander running the ropes, hitting that beautiful, I don't know what you would call a graceful dive onto everybody. Commander and Vikingo are kind of solidified as the two guys you got to watch for if you love Lucha Libre. Commander, spent years in AAA, or spent years in Mexico, I should say, and then a few years ago came to AAA, and since then he's been in MLW, GCW, PWG, all the indies that matter he's been at, and here he is just with a little clip of what he could do in AEW. It's pretty cool to see. And of course Vikingo's killing it in GCW right now. GCW had a show over the weekend. He wrestled Alex Zane, former NXT talent Alex Zane, and he hit him with a running springboard 630 through a door. Totally finding his American home in GCW, I think, is Vikingo. But going back to the side note that is the ladder match, Hobbs won. I think Hobbs broke the ladder on someone's head or something, so the ladder was all bent up, so 4 referees had to hold the ladder for him to climb up and get the brass ring. It looked kind of silly, and then he had a hard time getting down off the ladder. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but there was a million ladders laying around the ringside. Why didn't he call an audible and go get one of those ladders and bring it in and put it up? I mean, I guess he was worried about timing and it looking too foolish, taking too long to set up and everything like that. But I mean, you got to call an audible when an audible needs to be called, and the big man didn't. But He's still got the brass ring. He tried to find Samoa Joe afterwards, who was then the TNT champion, which kind of pissed off Wardlow because he's saying, hey, he might not be the champion come, Monday morning when you can get a shot. So, which he wasn't, but we'll get to that. But yeah, this ladder match I think just needed to be talked about. Takeshita killed it in the ladder match. Takeshita, I think he's getting a little overhyped, but he's got some size. He's good in the ring. I think that he's got a lot of potential, and I'm really interested to see where that potential can go. I usually watch AEW shows the next day where I can skip a few things, and sometimes I already have the event spoiled for me and everything, but I ended up watching it at my friend's house, Kenny and James. Shout out to them for letting me into their home. It was great to watch it with a few other wrestling fans, especially James, who's been a wrestling fan since he was telling me the 80s. He was a Florida boy, so he watched some Florida territory stuff, some WWF stuff. He was saying that he's seen Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Triple H, Undertaker, and him and Kenny recently fell back into wrestling through AEW. So it's really cool to kind of talk to them and hear what they think of matches, because I kind of get jaded a little bit having not stopped watching wrestling and doing wrestling podcasts week to week for 9 years now. So it gets kind of fun to watch it with a fresh set of eyes, next to me, eating pizza, drinking some beer. I wasn't drinking beer, but I was having some sodas. Well, they were having some beers. It was kind of cool. But I got every single match here from Revolution ranked from worst to first. And number 8 out of 8, the women's title match. This was an alright match on a show of only good matches besides this alright match. I think this whole story of whose side is Soho on was not that good. But, seeing the three in the ring after the match, seeing Toni Storm, Saraya, and Soho in the ring after the match was cool. I don't know why it wasn't a singles match where Saraya was going to face Hayter and then Soho would screw Hayter over, revealing that she was on the side of Saraya and Toni Storm the whole time. You're paying Saraya all that money. Why not put the title on her? She can stand on the side of the stage at all these music festivals over the summer with the AEW Women's title, watching Fallen in Reverse. You could, all the people filming could have her on the, there could be some cross promotion here. But, Jamie Hayter is over. I think they're really scared to take the title off of her because she has such a devoted fan base that they might just turn against Saraya. But in this case, you want people to turn against Saraya. You get some hot goth girl out there in a room of wrestling fans, they're not really going to boo her. They don't want to boo her. But if you have her beat their favorite, they're going to boo her all day. And that's kind of the desired reaction with this new heel team. So I think they could have done it a lot better. And I don't know what's really going on here. I think this division needs to be kind of cleaned up. You didn't really get you did not get a Jade Cargill match on the pay-per-view. So that title is really kind of being nothing right now. And the title that is something is kind of like a hodgepodge of tag matches and triple threats. I feel we barely see Jamie Hayter defend the title. But that's why it's ranked number 8 out of 8. Number 7, the final burial. Jungle Boy versus Christian Cage. I wasn't too excited for this one going into it, not going to lie, but it did build well. Christian Cage, even though he has a legendary status amongst the wrestling fans, I think he's a little underutilized and a little underrated in AEW. He's crafty. I love the dirt in the eyes, and I love Jungle Boy taking it to him with a shovel to the dome and then throwing him in the coffin. When he shuts it, the coffin, drops. Not Darby Allin, but the coffin literally drops, and smoke fills the stage there. A little cheese factored to a coffin match. Never hurt anybody. What's next for Jungle Boy? I don't know. He's considered a pillar, but I don't know, man. He's more of a post. I don't know what I was even saying there. It's just being funny, or trying to be. Where do I see him? I don't know. I don't know what you can do with him. Go against him and Joe, or him and Wardlow for the TNT title doesn't really work. Orange Cassidy would be like a face versus face thing. Having him kind of go to Ring of Honor would kind of kill the whole idea that he's a pillar that you're building with. We've already seen him in a tag match with a tag title situation with Luchasaurus. I don't know what you can do with him. I mean, maybe like having Stokely Hathaway get involved with him because of the Jungle Hook, and then you could have him go up against all the members of the firm. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know where Jungle Boy would go after this. I think this Christian Cage storyline really helped him because it gave him something to do for so long. But now that that's over, now that Christian Cage is buried and gone, finally, from Jungle Boy, I don't know what you do with Jungle Boy after that. Going into the tag title match, 6 out of 8. One thing I noticed right away about this match, it wasn't the best bell-to-bell. It was a fun match, but it got some of the biggest reactions of the night. The crowd was hyped. They loved the Acclaimed. They love Cassidy. They hate Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. They hate the Guns. So this all set up for just a crowd favorite clusterfuck event that I was excited for. I was excited for this match. People were, just in love with these characters. The Guns retaining. It is what it is, man. I thought the Acclaimed were going to win. They're going to have to, kind of have a big run. I feel like the Guns are going to have a big run to kind of solidify themselves in the minds as AEW champions. Because like a lot of guys aren't buying it. A lot of people watching this aren't buying it. They're ready to see who the next champion is going to be. And if they keep it on the Guns for too long, I think that would be pretty bad. I think the Guns are going to have some good matches coming up, and they probably will because they were talking shit in the ring, and then all of a sudden, boom, FTR's music hits. And out comes FTR, and FTR, they could probably have good matches with anybody. I think that they're going to take the titles. The one title that was eluding them during their great 2022 run was the AEW tag titles. They held it during the pandemic era, but now they're crowd favorites. They need these titles in front of the crowd. And then you can do the Bucks and FTR. You can do Lucha Bros and the FTR. The Acclaimed are good guys, but I think you can still get away with favorite versus favorite, Acclaimed versus FTR. Especially, going it on a Dynamite or a Rampage or something like that. Top Flight and FTR, that would be kind of a fun dynamic. The High Flyers and the Ground and Pound. I'm booking like a year's worth of stuff for this FTR championship that hasn't even happened yet. That's how excited I am. Number 5 out of 8, Joe versus Wardlow for the TNT title. Solid match, not too long. Wardlow chokes Joe out. The result is more defining than the match. The result leads to Wardlow's second TNT title run, and then leads to Hobbs and Wardlow, two homegrown juggernauts locking horns on AEW television. Where do I sign up? I'm fucking stoked on this shit. Joe, top 5 all time. He has an ROH championship. I think he lives in Florida. Have him go down there and just kill it on Ring of Honor pay-per-views for a few weeks, or on Honor Club for a few weeks or months, and then bring him back when you need to bring him back in AEW. Number 4, Starks versus Jericho. I love countering the spear into a code breaker. That was sick. Starks blocks the Judas effect and then beats the Legend. What's next for Ricky Starks? I'd like to see him maybe have one more feud, maybe with a guy like Joe. And maybe, he went toe-to-toe on the mic with MJF before. Why not give him a title match? Maybe not on a pay-per-view, but maybe like a big title match on a Dynamite that's built for a few weeks. I'd love to see something like that. But number 3 out of 8, the Texas Death Match between Moxley and Hangman. This match was violent. We knew that it was going to be going in. Loved the spot where Mox was stabbing Hangman with a fork, and Hangman's blood was just spraying on Moxley's chest. That was some shit out of like a horror movie. Abdullah the Butcher rolling over. Abdullah the Butcher's probably watching on Proud from his Atlanta restaurant. This was elements of like the dog collar match came into play when they brought out the chain. Elements of FMW in the 90s with the barbed wire and everything. This was just, multiple eras of Texas Death or Deathmatch Wrestling came into play here. You had the NWA dog collar match. You had the barbed wire. I mean, I think I've said this a million times. I'm getting caught in a loop of excitement here. Hangman Page does win. I think he needed the win. He had a huge 2021. Hangman, having killer matches with Danielson, holding the AEW title, and then he got kind of tangled up in all of this Elite versus CM Punk nonsense, which was kind of hard to tell on AEW television because he had already left the Elite and he was supposed to be a good guy and Punk was supposed to be a good guy too. So some backstage shit kind of ruined things for him in 2022, and then of course he got the concussion there. But I gotta say, I've watched this guy from wrestling in North Carolina middle school shows to G1 in New Japan, so to hold the AEW title. So it pained me to say that Hangman wasn't having a good year last year. So now that it's March 2023, he's been having noteworthy matches with Moxley this whole year. I think this is the year where Hangman gets back into it. Maybe Hangman, not Ricky Starks, has that match that we're kind of talking about with MJF. Maybe he's MJF's next opponent. There would be two homegrown champions going at it for the first time for this world title. I can see it. But man, that match was crazy. I mean, just blood on blood. Mox bleeds all the time. Maybe if Mox didn't bleed so much, something like this would come across even more violent. It would be even more unforgettable if Mox didn't bleed every week already. But that's just a side note, a critique a little bit. It's kind of hard. I feel like anytime you talk about Moxley now, you talk about how he bleeds too much. I mean, critics like Jim Cornette, as this train goes by in Gibsonville, North Carolina, talk about how he bleeds too much. And then, my friends who I was watching the show with, that's what they talked about. We were like, hey, what do you think about this match? It was too violent. He was bleeding all over the place. So it's the common fan and like the legendary critiquer are all saying the same thing. Maybe it's time to change it up a little bit. But that is a nitpick. If I ever heard one, it was an amazing match. It pulled the emotions it's supposed to pull out of me. And we're moving on to the second best match on the show. The 6-man tag, the trios titles, House of Black versus the Elite. This match was awesome. I did not take notes here. As I said, I watched the show, so this is more of an emotional review. This is more of how I'm actually feeling about what's happening in these matches and what these results mean of these matches, rather than bell to bell what was taking place in the body of these matches. But I knew Buddy Matthews was going to go off, man. The Bucks are the Bucks. Brody King and Brody King. I know the size dynamic there, the size difference there was going to be good. And then, you got, Black and Kenny, Nino introduction. They were going to kill it. But then you had Buddy Matthews, who I know from his 205 Live days was going to kill it, but he doesn't get as much praise as the other five. And then what happens? Drops Nick out of the sky with that brutal knee to the face, so, kind of solidifying what was going to happen, which was the House of Black winning. They should have already won him a long time ago. I don't know what's next for these guys. Maybe you do Lucha Bros versus Mark Briscoe. I know they were wrestling each other. They wrestled in the same team, rather, on the pre-show, the buy-in. I can see something like that happening. But where's Pac? I mean, it's cool to see Mark Briscoe teaming with the Lucha Bros, but does that mean that this is the end of Death Triangle? We haven't seen Pac a long time in AEW. We haven't seen like Darby and Sting a while in AEW. Where are these guys who are just kind of disappearing in AEW going to be? And could they be good opponents for the House of Black's new title run? I think the Elite will benefit from this loss just as much as House of Black will benefit from this victory, oddly enough. I think now the Bucks can go up against like the Acclaimed and help get the Acclaimed more over. They could go up against FTR. They can go up against the Guns. They are now in the tag division again, which is going to be, super beneficial to that tag division, because as fun as that tag match was on this show, online people were like, oh, this is a pre-show match. There's no star power, blah, 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 blah. So now the Bucks are back in the division. The stars of the division are back, so they can maybe heat up that division again. Even though, like, if you watch, I think, it's some good stuff happening in that division. But as far as, like, the internet fan thinks and should suggest, it needs some stars, and that's what the Bucks can do. And then, of course, you got Kenny Omega, who, they call him the best bout machine for a reason. Is he going to go up against Takeshita for the love of Don Callis? Is he going to go up against MJF for the world title? I mean, he has the IWGP US title. Is he going to go to Japan and New Japan and kind of take a break from AEW for a while? Is he going to defend the U.S. title on AEW television like we saw Carl Anderson do against Lance Archer in Texas a few years ago? Who knows? There's lots of stuff that could happen now that the Elite don't have these titles anymore. And there's, a lot of good matches that can happen because of a team like House of Black, who have kind of been trying to solidify themselves in AEW with these titles. I think that it being on House of Black is amazing stuff, because, I mean, once Malachi Black came from WWE to AEW, he kicked Cody's head off. He had that great feud with Cody, and then he kind of, I think, struggled to find himself. Even when he was building this faction with Brody King, Buddy Matthews, struggling to find himself. They kind of did the Mist thing for a while. They feuded against different people. People thought they were really cool, but I feel like they had a hard time finding out what to do with them. And now that they have these titles and the Elite are gone, it's really their division. And I bet they're going to kick some people's heads off all summer long. And people are going to go nuts here for House of Black. But that all being said, there's still one match to talk about. And in my opinion, it's the match of the year, the Iron Man match between Bryan Danielson and MJF. Match of the year. We'll get into it a little bit. But MJF going after the shoulder, Danielson going after the leg. Took a while before the first pin happened here. It really kind of set the tone that we were watching a wrestling classic by the pace in the early going here. But then MJF started pulling some bullshit, DQing himself by kicking Danielson in the balls, or low blowing him in the balls, to then get the 2 wins that he needed to catch up to Danielson. I saw some people giving this spot some shit online where neither man could get a pin when the pace was picking up. They were rolling each other up for 2 counts. Bryce Remsburg even had a sore hand from slapping the mat so many times. I thought this was a cool spot. Everyone I was watching with thought it was a cool spot. I also thought it was cool because there was a show called Saturday Morning Slam that also had a spot like this between Danielson and Tyson Kidd. So I kind of seen Danielson do this before, so I thought it was a bit of a callback from like this show that happened like 11 years ago between some good wrestlers, and now here it is, like this little moment of a match that I liked 10 years ago is being incorporated in a match that I'm currently enjoying. I was stoked. I didn't even realize that anyone would have a problem with that spot until the next day I get on, and Twitter tries to ruin wrestling every day if you let it, but I didn't let it. I was in there defending the spot, keyboard warring it up against these people. MJF going for broke with the elbow off the top through the table onto the floor, getting some distance, back in the ring, tying up Danielson, couldn't tap him out. MJF, constantly going for water during the whole match. It was brought up over and over again by the announce team, but I think they were trying to show that he was running short of breath. So when they went the distance and time was out, it was an hour-long draw. Tony Schiavone came down there, said it's a sudden death, but the AEW medics had an oxygen tank hooked up to MJF, so they had to, get the oxygen tank off of him rapidly, get out of the ring, And then the son of a bitch used the oxygen tank, clocked Danielson in the head with it when the ref wasn't looking, to then put on in the salt of the earth. And long story short, he taps out Danielson, taps out the GOAT, the Jon Jones of AEW, the Okada and Tanahashi of AEW, taps out the GOAT right there in the ring. This is like, I mean, if I look back at my favorite matches in AEW, Danielson is in like 4 of the top 10. So, I mean, you got to give him credit where credit is due here, but you also got to give MJF credit where credit is due. Everyone talks about how good he is on the mic, as you know, now he brings it up. This is like the 3rd or 4th classic he's had, and then he goes back and has the second performance of the night with the media scrum. Just cuts this crazy promo on the Dirt Sheet Riders. Makes me kind of think that he was kind of trolling Punk here a little bit, eating pickles and everything like that instead of eating muffins, but talking throughout the whole show. And he even makes a Dirt Sheet Rider eat his pickle. That's right. He offers a journalist in the scrum a pickle and says, "Come up here, come up." And I think he calls him fuckface or something, makes him eat a pickle. We didn't even talk about early on in the match. MJF jumps in the crowd. He's taking the crowd to Larry Land. He's stalling a little bit to catch his breath, grabs a cup from this mom in the crowd and just throws it on a kid who has an AEW title on, front row seats. I thought it was water. It looked like water. Brian Alvarez of Wrestling Observer Radio says that it was tequila. The mom was upset. I mean, I would be too if someone doused my son with tequila in the front row when we're just trying to watch a wrestling show. But they took him to the bag. Tony Khan apologized. They let him meet Powerhouse Hobbs, which apparently is his favorite wrestler. And, I mean, if you didn't know that you shouldn't throw tequila on a kid who's front row watching you perform, now you know MJF. But that's what makes MJF MJF. He does crazy shit like that. If you're going to, write a Yelp review on MJF, that's only going to add fuel to the fire. It was a fun, I guess from my perspective, watching at home, I think it was a fun perspective, a fun little moment. I didn't see it coming. The interactive aspect of the wrestler and the crowd is something that I never want to see leave pro wrestling. And I think you kind of have to push the boundaries of what you can and should do in order to keep that interaction alive in pro wrestling. But speaking of pro wrestling, I love that shit. I hope you love it. I hope you listen to this podcast. Shout out to Kenny and James for having me over once more. I'd love to have you guys over here. Maybe I'll do a big SummerSlam party or something like that after WrestleMania. As always, fly high. I'm out.